Gentlemen, for the last 2 years, we have been incredibly blessed, as I'm sure any of you who've ever sat at a table with Father Nestor or talked to him personally. From his unselfish giving of himself, his dedication to us as truly a model of a holy priest. His holiness and his sanctity is going to come forth here because we've asked him, listening to his story, about what he's going to face, how his life's going to change when he gets back to Tanzania, when he leaves us on or about, January 15th or something like that. So what you're about to see is the life that he's going to live when he goes back. And if you're like me, the impact was so great that I can't believe he wants to go back to what he's going to go back to when I started looking at the pictures and hearing and questioning him about the reality of what life's going to be like when he goes back. He's truly going to be living a sacrificial life. So with that, ask Father Nestor to come and talk to us and share with us what life's like in the villages of Tanzania that he is going to return to serve. Father Nestor?
Good morning.
Good morning, Father.
So by January 11th, next year, it will be 4 years of my stay here in the US. I'll be done with school, and I hope, like he said, by January 15th, I'll be heading back home because my paperwork will be done and I'll be ready to go. In my 4 years here, that's been quite an experience. Change of culture, new people, school, and I would say I have experienced and received a lot of love from almost all the people I have met in this country. My 2 years here at St. Peter Paul have also been incredible. I've been able to share and break the bread with you. I've been able to share your life, your experiences, and probably you have also shared a little bit of my life and my story. And so as I go back, just wanted to give a picture of where my diocese and the country looks like. So Dar es Salaam is where I will land. And I will have almost 700 kilometers to drive or by bus to go down to Jombe. Let's now talk about what the life of a priest looks like in Tanzania. It's a little bit different. It's not what you are used to here. But in order to understand how that life looks like, we want also to first start with the general functions of a priest. Any priest in the world has 3 functions. The first one is teaching. And it's important to start with teaching because it starts with knowing God before we do other things. And so a priest can teach through homilies. And I believe that priests are trying their best to bring that truth to the people. So homilies is one way that a priest can teach. Catechesis is another way, very important. And the last one is by religious education. And I want to say a little bit about that because I became a priest because the priest was coming to our school, teaching us religion, sharing his moments with us. And it's through that I started thinking of priesthood, and especially when he was always asking provoking questions. Who wants to be a priest like me? And so a priest being out there, meeting people, teaching the truth is very important. After people know who God is, then the sanctifying function comes in. And this is where the priest celebrates sacraments, all the sacraments. Sacraments being the sources of grace. And in order for a priest to celebrate these sacraments, there are things that he needs. As you all know, at the altar we have sacred vessels, we have chalices, we have ciboriums, we have pyxes, all those kind of things. And I'm very surprised that they are very expensive. Very expensive, especially here. Very expensive. And I want at this point to thank everyone who has been very helpful. I got some of these vessels already shipped back home. Maybe some of my brother priests will have access to them. We also need vestments. And at this point, I want to thank very much Father Priest, who has donated a good portion of his priestly vestments, and all of those are on the way. I also want to thank some of the parishioners who bought new vestments so we can use, not me alone, but so the priests can have access to quality priestly vestments as they celebrate the sacraments. And also there are books, the altar missal, the lectionaries, those are also important. The music is also important, and all that make the work of sanctifying people a good one. And then there is the governing function of a priest. Every priest in the world will do that. Of course, we do it differently, depending on the resources and the people around you. But there is a lot of planning. There is a lot of leadership. And there is organizing all the activities, structuring of the parish, so the work can go well. And also we need some set of controls, like we do now. Wearing the masks and all that. It's all the activity, the role of the priest. The controlling in terms of processes and systems is also important for the parish to work. And so this is how the concept of a parish is in Njombe. Here, you have a parish like St. Peter Paul, one church here. And then the priest goes to Mass and does all the sacraments here. People will come from other places to come to church and go back home. In Tanzania, especially my diocese, it's different. We have the main church, the parish church like this one, and then we have villages like you see outside the parish. We call them the outstations. And so a priest has to do masses in the parish and also has to go out in the villages to be able to celebrate, to do all the things that I just talked about, the functions of a priest. And so in that way, a priest uses more time on the road than the time he spends with the people. And there are ways to reach these people out there. The first one is, the first picture on the top left, you can walk. That's one way. The second way is if you have a bicycle, which I had, that was my gift from my pastor. When I was ordained, I got a bicycle. When I saw this picture, I was like, okay, because I got an accident. We come from the mountains, you will see in the next slides. And it's tricky to go down if the brakes don't work very well. And I had to, in order to save myself, I had to hit the side of the road. So I survived, and the front tire was looking like that. So that's another way to move around. These days we have Chinese bringing in motorcycles, like the one you see in the picture. That's another way you can move around. It's kind of tricky during rain season because it's slippery and all this kind of thing. Another way to go and meet the people in the outstations is by road. And you can use a bus if that is a possibility. But again, as you see, the roads are kind of tricky. And if you're lucky you have a car is another option. But again, roads are challenging because they are not as good as your roads. And so a proper kind of a car is important. I wanted you to have at least an idea of how the terrain in our area looks like. Mlangali is my home parish. And as you can see in this picture, it's mountainous. And as you can see this road that goes through my parish, my home parish, you can see that it's steep slopes. And so even during dry season, you need something that's powerful if you have to drive on that road. Because some areas are really steep. And even when you're driving down, you still need a four-wheel drive in some areas because it's too steep. So a four-wheel drive is important, and it's helpful. The parish car or vehicle is also an ambulance to people around. When they get sick, because we don't have hospitals like you guys do, like very close. So people will always come to a priest for help. And here I can't help to remember this story. 2009, I go for mass in the village, video mass on Easter. And after I was done with the mass at midnight, as I'm preparing to go home, this lady comes with a baby, small baby, maybe a couple of weeks old. And she tells me, the life of this child is in your hands. And I said, what do you mean? She says, I went to the clinic here and they said they can't handle the situation and I have to go to a bigger hospital. This is midnight. And my pastor just gave me a little bit of gas to just bring me to the village and back. So I tell her, I am willing to take you to the hospital, but I can't because I don't have enough gas to take you there. And in the village there was one guy who owned a milling machine, and he comes and says, if you are willing to go, I have gas. And I said, if you have it, then we are good to go. So we drove to this place, and I was able to bring her to the hospital. And I knew the nurse, so I could go to her house and wake her up. She would take care of the child. Then I go back, I get home around 3 in the morning, and I have mass in a couple of hours. After kind of 6 months, we had sisters living in there. This lady came to the sisters and gave the sisters a big chicken in an envelope. So the sister comes with these and she says, there was a lady who came and said, we give these to you. So I was interested more on because the sisters were the cooks, so I was interested more on the envelope and see who that was. And so when I opened the envelope, I see a letter and a 10,000 bill, which will be like $5 here. In the letter she explains, she says, I am the lady who came to you for help, and you helped me go to hospital. And I wanted to just tell you I didn't want to see you because I think what you did is too big and I didn't do anything for you. So this is what I got for you. I got this money and I got the chicken to just thank you. And then she said, I asked your parishioners, because she wasn't Catholic, I asked your parishioners your name, and I gave your name to my child. So I have a Nestor somewhere. And I'm not sure if I'll see him because she didn't want to see me. But I hope someday I'll see him. So what consumes the time of a priest? Again, in my diocese, priests do not have a paycheck at the end of the month. They have got to find ways to sustain themselves. And so it's kind of difficult to balance pastoral work and survival time. So a priest has to find ways to finance his clothing. In most cases, in some of the parishes, if they are not new, there is a rectory, a house where a priest lives. But a priest has got to find things that will, like, repair that, buy a bed, bed sheets and blankets. And at this point, I want to thank some of you who have already bought some of this stuff and they are on their way going home. He has got to finance his health. If he ever gets sick, he has got to find some money to make sure he can be treated. Like we said, mobility, transportation is something that he has got to figure out how that is going to happen. Food is something that he also has to find ways to get that. How does he do that? He does that through farming. And by farming, I would say there are two ways. The picture you see on the left is tea. that's a cash crop. So some people will do some cash crops, depending on where they are. Some will do tea, some will do coffee. Find something that will give in some money from farming. And then we have food crops. Grow crops that will give us food to eat. And again, we don't have jewels or electricity to preserve our food. So our food is from farm to kitchen. So you need to grow crops depending on seasons, or sometimes dry, like if it's corn dried or beans dried and keep it dry. Animal husbandry is another thing that we do to help finance our activities and sustain our life. Some have pigs, some have cows, some have goats, some have chickens. And then depending on the area, a kiosk or small store will also serve the purpose of raising money to buy things that we cannot produce. So I wanted to kind of give you a picture of how these activities are and how they consume the time. Farming, the whole process is all manual. We don't have machinery. I went with them down to the Kankakee area, and I saw the machines and the technology that's used in farming, and how they use a very short time to do a bigger chunk of work. At home it's kind of different. We use hoes, and if you have cows, that will be an easier way to do the farming. Weeding is all manual, and by the time the corn, for example, is this level, and because sometimes it's hot, you see this guy here without a shirt, it's very itchy if these leaves touch your skin, and especially when you're sweating, it's kind of itchy. Harvesting is also manual, because you can see this lady here doing the harvesting. And if there is no milling machine in the village, milling is also manual. The mortar and the pestle are the things that we use, and you can see there, they use those to turn the corn into flour ready to cook. So a priest's backyard, if you want to be good, has to look like that. There should be some stuff at your backyard, not grass like you guys do here and flowers and all that. No, it's supposed to have some carrots back there, some chickens running around, some corn, some potatoes. This is the run-to place when you feel hungry. Animals that we raise are not only for food, they also provide us with manure. Because sometimes you're in a village and chemical fertilizers are very expensive. So the animals that we raise, we keep the manure and we can use it in our banana plants, we can use it in the gardens. We also grow horticulture. We have avocados, we have apples and other kinds of fruits. That's where we take the manure. A small store, a kiosk, will also be good, but again, we've got to look at the needs of the community around, because sometimes it's very hard to find small things. So an assessment of the community and the needs is key, and then after that assessment we can determine what to sell, and the profit that we make from it will also help buy things that we cannot produce in the farm. Cooking is another challenge. Without electricity, without gas, it's challenging and takes a lot of time. And so I just put in here some pictures to show you how that is done. So the first one is, if you don't have something that can reduce the use of wood, is just put 3 stones and, like you see in the first picture, put wood and cook. But that uses a lot of wood, and that means you have got to go to search for wood all the time, and carrying and all that takes a lot of time. And so people are trying to find ways to minimize the use of wood. And so the second picture there also, that's simple. Just put stones and build using mud and all that, and then you have at least one place where you can put wood. But that also, it's difficult to control smoke and soot. As you can see, the pots that are used are kind of difficult. Then little by little, people learned how to build. Third picture. they can build that so you have a little bit of wood used, and the heat can be controlled to go specifically to where the pots are. This is the picture that you see, but that is kind of a little bit expensive because you need some cement blocks and you need cement to be able to build all those. Then now people have learned a new technology, and you see the last two pictures at the end. That's a portable cooker, if I can call it, and as you can see, it can control smoke, and it can also, you see on the last picture has kind of a chimney that can be taken out, and so the smoke is controlled. And as you can see, the pots are not full of soot. But the problem with this one is that they are expensive. It will be around 800 US to get that. But it's good because it's portable and it has a lot of control how much wood you use. And water, drinking water especially, is challenging. It takes time. The first picture down here is from a spring. That is kind of good water because it's from the spring and clean and safe. But as you can see, it's challenging to get that water from down there and get out with that, especially when you put it here. My dad broke his front piece because of something like that. But again, after you get the water from there, you still have to move to walk a distance from there to home. Second picture shows that carrying and movement is challenging, and water is kind of heavy. And then you need also water for cleaning, for washing clothes and all that is manual. Here you just touch a button and everything works. You need that. It takes time. Get the water and do the cleaning and then hang the clothes. You want rain to come when that is dry. Then again, there are people who have designed kind of a manual pump, like the last picture there. So you got to go down the ground a couple of meters down and then fix that, and you can roll it around to get the water, which is, you can do it closer to home, it's easier. But that water is kind of not very safe. You need to boil it before you drink. So if one day you visit me to Tanzania, don't drink water from the tape. That will be my advice right away. And so the main problem is that for a priest is that they need to provide for themselves. And again, they need to administer sacraments. They need to teach. And they need to manage the parish. Finding that balance is always a problem. And so as I head home, there will probably be no organized parish with established living quarters. Parishioners, like I said, are geographically dispersed, and so it takes time to be able to visit them and address their needs. People come to Mass, but like I said, they only have access to Mass once a month. And so with transportation and it may make it easier, and probably we can do it easier. What am I looking forward to when I go back home? Some of you may know this man. This is Cardinal Sarah, and he is one of my favorites because he lives in Rome, because he works in Rome. And if you look at that picture, that's what I am looking forward to, the life of a priest back home. That picture shows that he is happy. He's happy. He's enjoying his priesthood. If you look at his eyes, he's focused. If you look at that picture very closely, you see that he's confident in what he's doing. If you listen to him, you know he's confident. He has faith. Those are the qualities that I would like to see in a priest back home. But that is only possible if some of the weight, some of the challenges that we just talked about can be removed from his shoulders and allow him to spend more time with the sheep. Like Bishop Hicks said in his homily during his installation, that will give him more time to smell like a sheep. So if that weight is removed, it means the priest will be able to celebrate sacraments, especially the Mass. Will put more time in doing that. And that is good for the people. The priest will also have more time to teach, and especially to visit schools, teach your religion. Because my experience tells me that when a priest goes to a class to teach, it has a lot of impact. But we've got to find ways to take off some of the burdens that are on the shoulders of a priest. So we can require that he is available to teach. He is available in front of the students so they can ask questions. If a priest has time to spend with, especially with the young boys, and model them, that will be good to help the young men who are thinking about priesthood. And I think a priest who is happy, like I showed you the picture, will model better, will be an example better than a priest who is not happy, who is probably, his life is kind of miserable, can't dress up well, can't eat well, can't seem to enjoy preaching and all these kind of things. Because if a priest doesn't show that, no young man will say, I want to be like him. And I want a priest to always go out there and show people that being a priest is a good thing to do. And I allow, especially young men, want to be like priests. This is Bishop Hicks. And this picture is from El Salvador, where he worked in the orphanage. And so I think if a priest doesn't have so many things to worry about, he will have time to focus on developing programs that remove poverty. He will focus his time helping people grow in their faith, but also bodily, like the bishop was doing there. Again, if a priest doesn't have a lot of things on his shoulders, he will have time to sit down with the parishioners, the governing part of the life of a priest, plan things, and help the church grow. And of course, reach the goal of bringing men and women to heaven. And that's how the life of a priest looks like in Tanzania. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father. Gentlemen, this man, this priest, is so holy because he's a master of humility, unlike the man that's before you. This man, think about it, what he's going to go back to is nothing because he gave away everything he had before he came here 4 years ago. He's going to return only with what he can be carried on a plane or ship. He gets 2 bags, and the extra bag costs what? $300? An extra suitcase. His transportation is going to be his legs. And it's 700 kilometers, 500 miles between where the airport is and where his village is. The money he's going to have is what he has in his pockets because there's no bank account and there's no stipend from the church to priests in Njombe. He's going to go back and he's going to be spending 60% of his time on survival. He's got no plumbing, no electricity. He's going to have to farm, raise animals, and eat them, by the way. He's got to catch them, kill them, slaughter them, dress them, and cook them, and then eat it because there's no refrigeration. If he's lucky during dry season, he's going to be able to spend 25% of his time traveling to see his people, and maybe 15% of his time with people. 15% of his time.